Have you ever wondered why so many business partnerships end in absolute disaster? I mean, you've probably seen it happen. Or hey, maybe you've even lived it. Two friends or two brilliant professionals decide to join forces. The excitement is through the roof, the vision is crystal clear, but fast forward a couple of years, and the business is dissolved, the relationship is totally ruined, and everybody walks away bitter. We usually blame it on a lack of funding, a bad market, or just clashing personalities. But what if the real reason is completely counterintuitive? What if the very foundation of how we're taught to build a partnership is actually structurally flawed from day one? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to fundamentally shift your perspective on what it actually means to go into business with someone else. We're diving into some fascinating source material that breaks down the natural laws of human alliances, and it makes a really bold claim. Our modern ideal of the perfectly equal 50-50 split is exactly what leads to ruin. I'm incredibly excited to share this with you because the framework we're about to unpack isn't just some abstract philosophy, it's a deeply practical, mathematical approach to making sure both of you actually succeed. Okay, let's dive into this structure. Here's our exact roadmap for today. We're going to start by debunking the 50-50 myth, explore the natural 3-7 rule, look at why two heads inevitably fail, break down the 3-year cycle, and finally, wrap up with a genius 30% exit strategy.
All right, Section 1, the 50-50 partnership myth.
We really need to start by confronting the very reason we seek out partners in the first place. Because honestly, it exposes a massive misconception in the business world. The myth we're constantly sold is that partnerships should be beautifully equal, 50-50 splits. Half the equity, half the power, half the decision-making. But the reality? It's totally different. Partnerships are inherently unbalanced. They are naturally 70-30 alliances. Just think about it for a second. We only ever seek out a partner because our own power, our own resources, or our skills just aren't enough to achieve the goal alone. I mean, if we could do it 100% by ourselves, we absolutely would. We reach out precisely because we lack something. So entering an alliance assuming true equality, it's a dangerous illusion, and it's basically setting a giant trap for your ego.
So the reality of partnering really boils down to 3 core truths. First, you lack specific power alone. Second, you have to combine complementary strengths, like maybe you've got the skills, but they have the capital. And third, and this is absolutely crucial, you must acknowledge the other person's superiority in those specific areas. The source material makes this crystal clear. Acknowledging your partner's specific strengths without letting your ego get in the way is the absolute foundation of avoiding conflict. If you can't admit that your partner brings a heavier weight in certain categories, well, you really shouldn't be partnering at all.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 3-7 rule.
And this brilliantly illustrates the math behind it all. Let's say you have a baseline of strengths. That represents about 30% of the dynamic. Your partner brings another 30% in capital or complementary skills. But then there are these natural attributes, what the source calls energy mass. This could be natural popularity, likability, even physical presence. If your partner has these traits, the balance strictly shifts to a 70-30 dynamic. Remember, you don't partner with a clone of yourself. You partner because they have a surplus exactly where you have a deficit. The math is literally never 50-50. It always naturally skews 3-7 based on who holds that dominant combination of skills, capital, and energy.
There's a quote from the source here that is just incredibly powerful. If you cannot acknowledge your partner and only push your own intelligence, you will quickly shatter. This right here is where ego kills the business. If the natural law of your dynamic dictates a 3-7 split in influence, but you stubbornly demand a 50-50 split just to satisfy your own pride, the venture is going to instantly shatter. You absolutely have to embrace the imbalance.
So this naturally brings up a massive question for the execution phase. If it's not equal, and it really shouldn't be equal, who should actually lead the company?
That brings us to Section 3. Two heads will fail.
Listen, it's time to dispel that modern trendy idea of having equal co-CEOs. The rule here is incredibly simple. Only one person can be the face of the operation. The other must proudly be the backbone. The source text emphasizes that a body with 2 heads can accomplish absolutely nothing. The partner with the highest energy, the most compelling presence, and the strongest outward-facing attributes, they have to be the undisputed frontrunner. They're the face. The other partner, who might be operationally brilliant or financially secure, has to consciously choose to support from behind. Because if the person who belongs in the back starts getting jealous of the person in the front and tries to pull them down, the whole enterprise collapses.
And history literally proves this. Look at the massive global conglomerates mentioned in the source,
legendary founders like Lee Byung-chul of Samsung and Kim Woo-chung of Daewoo. Now, neither of these titans started entirely alone. They actually started with partners, but they naturally took the lead. Why? Because of their sheer massive energy mass. They had this unmatched drive that just naturally put them at the front. And crucially, their early partners didn't try to stifle them with some forced 50-50 dynamic. They supported the leader until they gained their own independent strength, and then they eventually separated.
Which perfectly sets up Section 4, the 3-year cycle.
Let's map this out and see how it builds across a strict chronological timeline. The source argues that the foundational unit of a partnership is actually a 3-year cycle. Year 1, you join forces strictly because of your individual weaknesses. Year 2, you build combined strength, relying heavily on that 70-30 dynamic we just talked about. Then, year 3, you hit a critical decision point. Have you built enough individual strength to stand entirely on your own? If yes, it's time to separate. If not, you reinvest for another cycle. But the major takeaway here is that partnerships are inherently temporary alliances meant to build independent strength. They are not permanent marriages.
I've got to say, I love the blunt wisdom of this quote from the text. If a partnership lasts forever, you will become enemies. I mean, think about how freeing that is. We're so often taught that a dissolved partnership is a failure, and that true loyalty means staying together forever. But the source argues the exact opposite. Clinging to a partnership out of some misplaced sense of loyalty, long after you both have the strength to stand alone, that just leads to resentment, stagnation, and mutual destruction. You'll literally end up cursing each other.
All right, finally, Section 5, the 30% exit strategy. So the crucial point is, how do you actually separate gracefully and profitably? It all comes down to this exact number, 30%. When the time comes to part ways and launch your own independent venture, the natural impulse is to take 100% of your fair share of the profits and assets and just walk away cleanly, right? Well, the source says this is a huge mistake. Never take everything. You should intentionally leave 30% of your share behind with your former partner.
And when you compare these two exits side by side, the genius of this strategy is totally obvious. Look at the greedy exit. You take 100% of your share. The result, your former partner suddenly loses a massive chunk of capital or resources and struggles to recover. Plus, for you, there's zero passive growth. You only eat what you kill moving forward. But look at the 30% strategy. You leave 30% behind. Now your former partner actually thrives. You haven't crippled them. You've given them incredible momentum. Because you supported them, they're going to succeed. And as they succeed, that 30% you left behind acts exactly like a growing stock in a booming company. You are literally actively investing in the guaranteed future success of someone you already know how to work with.
The source wraps up this concept with a great touch of humor, saying, "Do not stick around like chewing gum." I mean, how true is that? Overstaying your welcome just suffocates both parties. By stepping away at the exact right time and leaving that 30% investment, you free your partner to reach their full potential without you dragging them down, all while you go off to build your own independent empire.
So let's pull all of this together and summarize this incredible chronological arc we've drawn from the source today. This is the natural law of partnerships. Step 1. Swallow your ego and acknowledge the natural 70-30 imbalance of strengths. Step 2. Let the partner with the highest energy and best attributes be the singular face that leads, while the other proudly supports as the backbone. Step 3. Leverage this combined strength for a 3-year cycle until you are both independently strong. And finally, Step 4. Intentionally separate, leaving 30% of your share behind as an investment in their ongoing success, which results in mutual independent wealth.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. Based on everything we've looked at today, ask yourself, are you building a partnership to last forever, or are you building it to successfully outgrow it? Shifting your mindset from permanent attachment to strategic, temporary growth might just be the absolute best, most profitable business decision you ever make. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.